All right, welcome to the podcast. So
How we
we'll get
going?
started where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memories, what are we getting into?
Ooh, earliest childhood memories. We had a really, really old, dilapidated house in Tacoma, and I remember riding around on my ATV, the little Power Rider ATVs.
Okay.
We're talking earliest memories. There's pictures of that, and I physically remember wearing my Shaquille O'Neal Magic, Orlando Magic jersey, and also my Power Ranger T-shirt in
Yeah.
short combo, and just riding that little, Power Wheels ATV all around our house.
That's fantastic. So right
Yeah,
now I'm two for two. The last person I had on also she had an ATV when she was younger, and I think she flipped it at a young age. How were
man.
you at riding yours?
Well, this thing was just a little battery powered thing,
Okay.
so not quite to that power yet. I mean, could have been, but we had ATVs. My dad had dirt bikes, etc. But we just started me out on like a little, you know, four wheel plasticky kind of thing. So,
Oh,
uh,
what's the instruction as far as like not going in front of the road? Because my daughter's almost three, and like she has a
okay,
bike that she'll like step
yeah,
on. Like I can catch her and stuff, but I feel like when you're on a four wheeler, like you gotta trust the kid.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I think for me, a lot of these things, I have no kids.
Okay.
So I live vicariously through my sister who has four.
Okay.
And she had four back to back to back to back. And not to get into the whole like family tree situation, but I kind of have more of a family bush. A lot of people
Okay.
got married and remarried, and people still kind of keep the peace. But um, I've had stepsisters who have daughters as well, and so for me, I get to get the secondhand kind of experience.
Okay.
And I've got my biological sister she's a little bit more laissez-faire. Like,
Yeah.
hey, they're gonna find out, they're gonna, the moment that you put your hand on a stove and it's hot, it's like,
Yep.
well, I kind of told you. I would say my stepsister, love her to death, but she's a little bit more crack the whip.
Yeah.
She will kind of say some similar things, but she's a little bit more aggressive up front of
Yeah.
don't do that, don't do this. So, you know, uh, I don't know the
For
parenting
you
tips on
growing
that.
up, do you feel like you were given a long leash when able to do things?
I think I found those long leashes myself, to be honest. I like pushed the boundary myself a little bit because my mom was fairly fearful. Let's just
Okay.
say that. There was always like look both ways before you go across the street, which I mean, yeah, that's second nature now. But like at the time, that could have extended to a lot of different things. Like, are you
Right.
wearing your helmet? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And at times, I do feel like that kind of stuck with me, but in the case of like the fears and whatnot, but you eventually you just kind of push those boundaries and you just kind of try to figure out what is right for me and what is right for this moment, and is there accident prevalent? Did I learn from this situation? Did I scrape my knee? Did I
Yeah.
and when like when you're coming into consciousness during that time period, those are really good lessons to learn, I think.
Oh, absolutely. As far as elementary school went, did you enjoy school? Were you just ready to hang out with friends? Like, what was school for you at a young age?
I loved school. I mean, I
Okay.
had friends. I did all the sports, tried a bunch of different things. I think ultimately I like to learn. I just always like to learn. So, I was a nerd, you know,
Yeah.
in elementary school. I really enjoyed the curriculum. I really enjoyed researching afterwards. I got like encyclopedias for, Christmas
Nice.
every year, so I got into like Greek mythology at age or in fourth grade for
Okay.
whatever reason. But yeah, like from a very, very early age, I just remember reading. And so naturally school came pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I think the largest books I always got for Christmas were the Guinness Book of World Records.
Those were great too, though.
That was
Those
the
were
research I
awesome.
was doing.
Yeah, I hear you. They always had that at the Scholastic Book Fair for
Yep.
us, and I never did get it. My mom never wanted to buy it for me,
Yeah.
but
My mom's like,
those
I
were
know
great.
you're not reading books without pictures. Like I think I read the kids' Bible. Like I crushed that thing.
Yeah,
Like pictures
yeah,
from words, absolutely. But if it was like a bunch of words on a page, like no, that's not for me right now, mom.
right, right.
So as far as sports went, did your parents say, "Hey, go have fun, play as many sports as possible"? What was their kind of projection as far as you playing sports?
Well, I was a big kid, so and I was awkward, body wise, right? My body grew before I knew what to do with it, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, uh, as humans get bigger, I don't know if I'm above average anymore, but I'm 6'3" today.
Nice.
And back then I was, I don't know, my mom would get stopped a lot of times because I was in diapers and, I'm 2 years old and they're like, why do you have your 5-year-old in diapers? Right. So
It's wild that she'd get stopped.
I know. I'd be in a stroller just hanging off the end. But
Yeah.
long story short is that that body, they were like, man, we got to get this kid some coordination. So it was almost kind of like do whatever sport that you want to do, but you're going
Yeah.
to need to do something physical. You should be in something. And, in hindsight, I really do think it helped with adding a little bit of that structure to my
Yeah.
life in the long run. But at that age, it was kind of like, all right, find something, do something, find something. And then, hopefully this kid sticks with it, but he needs
Yeah.
to learn how to walk on his 2 feet.
At a young age, being taller or bigger than the kids, was there any bullying done in elementary school, or like what kind of stuff was being thrown your way?
I got bullied. I
Okay.
mean, when I was, it was odd because I was the outlier. And maybe this happens to other big kids, like whether you either become the bully or you just kind of take it. I just wanted
Yeah.
friends, really. And at that age, a little bit chubbier. Uh, I don't know if they still have this size anymore, but going to Target and buying husky jeans,
Okay.
and I think the brand was even husky,
Yeah.
right? And just having to wear, XL youth shirts and things like that, getting picked on for things like
Yeah.
that was kind of sucked, especially I would say that was probably around second to fourth grade is when like I don't know if it's the time that you're starting to notice bodies, like
Yeah.
maybe not in like, a sexual sense, but just you're just noticing other people's like
Right.
bodies, right? And like how they differ from you. And I'm sure you as a parent notice like how critical kids can be
Oh yeah.
sometimes with yeah, just like no filter on anything. But man, yeah, it was kind of brutal, growing up.
As far as the jeans went, that jogged a memory. I think I wore jeans once in elementary school because they were like the stretchy kind. I was in
Okay.
the 95 percentile for height and weight just because I was taller when I was younger. But like jeans
Yeah.
were so uncomfortable. Like they're not the fancy jeans that we have now.
No.
Like there's no
No,
bend to
my
these things.
no, they were like Carhartt thick denim.
Yeah.
I, it was a blessing if you got the ones that actually had like an elastic waistband to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I remember the only stretchy ones I had were actually like fleece lined. So anytime I would wear them, I would just be sweating. It's just
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah, those are your Where did you say you grew up?
So I grew up just outside Chicago.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so then cold winters
Yeah.
then for
No, we
sure.
definitely had those. As
Those would have
far
been
as
perfect for that time.
Yeah, no, it was great. As far as the bullying went, how did you deal with it? Was there like you talked to your family about it? You talked to your friends, just internalize it? What did we have?
I think the unfortunate part about it is actually probably just coming to the self-discovery within the past 2 years that it actually stuck with me for a
Yeah,
lot longer than I thought. And um, you know, not to get too deep in that, but it I don't know if I ever addressed it. Like I think I talked about it, but I don't know, I hate to say this, but I don't know if my parents really helped me in the way that I needed the
yeah,
help at that time.
yeah,
And so I kind of harbored some of those feelings. It then led into like other things as I grew older, trying to from young adult to, now in my 30s, different life scenarios that came along. But I know that back then there were some pretty critical kind of building block situations that just kind of didn't help
yeah.
overall. And so I internalized a lot of it. To
Mhm.
answer the question, I internalized a lot of it, and up until now,
Yeah. I mean, feel
still
free
do,
to
I
go.
guess.
Feel free to go deep into it. What was the like the beginnings where like things started that you held on to?
Um, Things that I've held on to, definitely kind of just uh body dysmorphia,
Yeah,
body image. And that kind of led into as I got into my professional career, well, not my professional, my like collegiate football career and high
yeah.
school football career, you're being judged by your body.
Hmm.
Was I tall enough to go Division One? I was 6'3". I thought I was pretty tall, and they're like, "Oh, you need to be 2 inches taller. Maybe wear some like taller boots or whatever when you walk into there, or his arms are disproportional or his legs are short. I have genetics where my legs aren't actually the majority of my body. It's
Yeah.
actually kind of my torso. So, getting judged on just like your body proportions and things like that, it kind of just compounded from there. And then I started
Mhm.
thinking about, my hair. Like, I think it extends now to my hair. Like, I have to have my hair cut a certain way by a
Yeah.
certain person, et cetera, just to feel like, okay, I've done, what I need to like fit in society, I
Yeah.
guess. But, long story short on that was just during that time period, as I'm getting bullied and bringing it up, I don't know if I had the right type of supportive either criticism or communication at that
Yeah.
time with my parents that would have helped dealing with coaches, dealing with authoritative figures, and just being myself, I
Yeah.
guess, a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I
So
mean,
yeah,
coming from a guy that really liked his hair, you have phenomenal hair. Like
thanks, I appreciate it.
I would be happy to have it, but I've been told that I don't have enough to fake it anymore.
Uh, Fair enough, man. Yeah, that's we each kind of have our own little struggles and whatnot.
Yep.
But I am glad I hate to say it, not to like rub it in, but I am glad that I'm holding on to this a little bit.
Absolutely. So as far as the communication goes, I feel like a lot of kids are in the same boat as far as not being like it's tough to communicate with your parents or your friends or like bring up the situation at all. Like, do you know like what that confidence would have looked like to be able to approach that, or like what are you thinking that now at this age about it?
There, I've actually spent probably way too much time ruminating on what could have gone right back then
Yeah.
versus now. Um, and to be honest, I think probably three just really simple things would have really, really helped during that time period is just outlining like what are our values, I
Okay.
guess, when you're in a family, obviously it's kind of part of the communal unit of like what are our family's values.
Right.
But at least at the time, when maybe not grade school, maybe around that fifth, sixth grade, when your cognition is actually starting to go somewhere, right? You're starting
Mm.
to like develop you as a human early. And that's when kind of the awkward things happen. I went through puberty really early, started getting pimples at the end of fifth grade.
Yeah.
I started getting like little beard hairs and stuff in my sixth grade summer. And that was awkward. But um, along that time period is to go along with this self kind of who you are. I think during that time period, it would have been helped for me to one, know what my values were, like what are the
Right.
things that I really appreciate so that I can go back to those. Um, how to process these things, how to not be so reactionary to
Mhm.
a lot of it. Um, and I stated the values first because I think the values are the base, right?
Okay.
It's the foundation of a house, essentially. When everything goes to hell and you're scared, nervous, whatever, and you have no idea what's going on, dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression at times throughout my life. But thinking back as a kid during that time period, if I would have had values set, my processing abilities, my ability to kind of take you know information in. All right, this kid thinks I'm fat,
Yeah.
right? Or why don't I have a six pack in high school? Or some of these kind of awkward conversations. I could have gone back to my values and said, all right, do I value having a six pack right now as a kid, or am I trying to be as big as I possibly can be so that I can get onto Division I football program?
Right.
And filter just all the information that's coming in. And now, I feel scared almost for the next generations and stuff because at that time that was a lot of information.
Right.
Now it's just like a barrage at your face. But that, and then I think the last thing would be to just really, I don't know, I've focused a lot on stoicism. Maybe stoicism wasn't the right kind of approach at that time, but a simple like guidance of like all this stuff is really not going to matter, you know.
Right.
You know, um, the focus should have been like do what I need to do now so that I can achieve the values, the goals, the things that I want to achieve, and anything that doesn't align with that, that doesn't fill my cup, doesn't go towards those values, then why am I spending so much time ruminating on it, you know?
No, absolutely. I feel like when we went to school, we had physical education every day, but that'd be wonderful if they had mental education every day as
Yeah.
well. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
guys, we just it'd be fantastic after a workout because we feel a little bit better, but let's journal about how our day went. These are our values. Are we doing what we say our values are? Did we get bullied? How do we work on that? The bullying segments that we got in school, I felt like it was just a section and it was happening to you at some point, but it was just gone after that week. And then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
next year we'll talk about it again. But it would be
Yeah.
nice if that was something that was continually going on because there's not a lot of conversation going on about it.
No, I mean, I haven't been around a school program in a while, right? And also, it would be weird for me to like be very involved in an elementary school at this time. So I don't know what
Yeah.
is going on there at all. But I do hear a lot about, the cyberbullying kind of talks, things like that. And I think that's all great. I don't know if I've never been a real big fan of just one school curriculum.
Yeah.
Even if I was good at it, I don't think that's how everybody learns. So,
Mhm.
to your point, a week long segment of bullying and then hey, we're on to sex ed or we're on to um, home ec type things or whatever,
Right.
you're just throwing more information at somebody and hoping that they, that week long segment really stuck with them that
Right.
year.
As far as middle school went for you, did you, it sounds like you still enjoyed the school, the topics or the what you were learning. Was there ever like a dread of going to school, or were fairly happy throughout the school days?
Um, Middle school was a tough transitionary period where it was kind of a breakthrough time period for
Okay.
me, right? Um, Sixth grade going into seventh grade and seventh grade, I would say getting bullied by eighth graders. Maybe that's a natural kind of thing. I don't know. New kids coming in. We were only seventh and eighth. New kids coming in, got to bully them. But I awkwardly started to hit puberty during that time, was really into emo music, was really into like just trying to find my identity that wasn't my dad's or my mom's or
Right.
whatever, right? And I had an awkwardly big chin. Like
Okay.
it's gonna sound really weird, but I started getting nicknames like the Crimson Chin from Fairly Odd Parents,
Oh
and
no.
yeah, like terrible ones, man. The ones that I remember to this day. But anyways, they yeah, I got bullied a lot for that. But that's also when I started to grow into my body a little bit more. I think
Okay.
I had reached I think I got to 6 foot by the time I was in eighth grade.
Oh, let's
Uh,
go.
yeah, I know it was great. Basketball, always making varsity, always, kind of getting into the sports and realizing, hey, this is a way for me to be cool, I
Yeah.
guess, even though, I'm kind of a nerd slash emo kid at heart. So, I mean, I still hold on to that a lot to this day. I have my kind of uber nerdy side, but I would definitely say that sports kind of gave me a little bit of purpose, community, some of the things that they say that you need, right, to feel
Yeah.
like you've filled your human cup.
Do you feel like when guys on your team were making fun of you, like that was more enjoyable, but then when it was more just like random people, or was it all more of the same?
Uh Guys on the team who would uh chip at me or whatever, I kind of still felt the rivalry at that time. I don't know if it like there were the I think the best way to explain this and thinking this, and I just read about this, is Brene Brown kind of explains how like there's people who fill your jar
Yeah.
with social currency marbles, right?
Okay.
There were a lot of people in those situations that I just felt like hadn't filled my social currency marble thing to be
Yeah.
able to like argue or make fun of or tell me otherwise, they just didn't have my trust. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, they would do things outside of this sporting event or this activity or whatever that was just downright mean.
Yeah.
It seemed like once the jersey was off, we're not teammates.
Do you feel like
But
they were trying to, I don't know if this works from what Brene said, but as far as do you think they were trying to take marbles from you to fill their small cup or
yeah, yeah, I think that's, and looking back at it and thinking about this at 32 versus, 14, it was just always kind of like, be a jock, be better than the other jock, be the best on the team, look better, play better, do this, do that better. And I think everybody was,
yeah,
during that time period. And everybody's just trying to fight for their awkward identity at that
yeah,
time period. In a way, I do think competition is good, but I do also know that there is a lot of misaligned attacks, on kids during that time period.
yeah.
Just things that can be really, really brutal to say to kids.
What was your favorite subject in middle school? What was something like, man, I can't wait to see this teacher. I'm just crushing this. Really love this.
I took an audio video class
Ooh.
that was pretty cool. That one was probably the most fun that I had. And we had a young teacher guy just got out of college. I think it was like his second year of teaching. And we were in kind of like the bonus science room. So like it wasn't even meant for, what we were doing in there,
Yeah,
but they had like plastic over all the other science equipment and stuff while we were just like carved out like a few tables for us. But we would just roam around the school. We had our video camera, our handy cam, Sony handy cam at
yeah,
that time, and we just film random stuff. And we started doing like a weekly news reel, things
that's
going
awesome.
around the. I know that was a lot. That was a lot of fun during that time period.
Yeah,
So
I think our
I had a lot of
highest
fun.
technology class in middle school was programming. And I remember
Okay.
that I was terrible at just like going through whatever I programmed. So I had a floppy disk that I would just share with my
Okay.
buddies.
Yeah. There you go. A
We
floppy disk.
throwing it back. But yeah, we did not have any video cameras
Yeah.
or that type of stuff going on in middle school. As far
Man.
as
Yeah.
moving into high school, what was it like being thrown into the sports with the older kids? Did you have a lot of angst going into that?
I had something to prove. And luckily at that time, there was a lot of rivalry, I guess, within my own class and then the class above me. But the seniors of that year really took me under their wing because they saw, I guess, my potential at that time. And, looking back at it, they were kind of a ragtag group of people. They really liked, heavy metal at that time and just,
Yeah,
were slamming monsters all the time. And weren't necessarily, I guess, what you
yeah,
considered the cool kids, even though they kind of were. My high school was weird. Like the burnouts were like all the cool kids, but
yeah,
like for us, me kind of being a little preppy, a little jockey, whatever, getting under their wing, being invited over to their houses for pizza and playing, Madden till 2 a.m. in the morning, slamming monsters and stuff. Like that was a good life. I
yeah.
was really looking forward to getting to my upperclassmen years. So
Mm,
freshman year wasn't bad because of a handful of people that really, really helped me.
yeah. There's the Amazon guy. Come. Yeah. Nope. Come. I'm going to edit this out. Nope. Come. Right here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All the time. We get Amazon. It's love. We'll make it. We're gonna be okay. Yeah, good job. Good job.
I was on a webinar one time
Yeah.
and I had closed the door because I thought it would be better. My dog was like sleeping in my bedroom. I was like, all right, perfect. She got scared, didn't know where I was, and like busted in like the Kool-Aid man and was like, what's going on in here? And I'm like in the middle of this. I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. My dog just decided that like now was the time to come in. So that was bad.
Yeah, usually it's not the Amazon people, but the UPS guy will always ring the doorbell, and I was like, never once has this worked out well for you guys. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe we stop that. All right, so as far as the schooling went, it seemed like we really enjoyed it. As far as the home life went, were you always just being thrown in, not thrown into sports, but driven to sports, always into that type of stuff? Did you do any vacations? What are we looking at there?
We did vacations in high school, a little bit when I was younger, but to be honest with you, my family didn't really have a lot of money.
Mm,
Uh, Very unique situation where my grandparents were very successful in the city I grew up in, Spokane, very well connected, great people, but they were also the type that you to like earn that money. So I actually worked for them a lot during the summer. And so summer times were spent on the lakes out there. It was great, etc. But like during school, it was very much focus on homework and you know, getting into college. I took all the AP classes. I don't think there was a year I wasn't on honor roll, and that even extended into college as it was. But um, got to get the best grades, got to be top of the class, got to be the best in your sport, and then carve out some time for you. You know, making myself meals, taking care of my sister at that time because my parents worked. My dad worked night shift. My mom worked at a bank, so she wasn't getting home until like 6, 7 o'clock at night. Taking care of my sister. I don't think I slept. I've never actually been a really good sleeper. I always have had like the basement room growing up,
Yeah.
and my parents would just say, stay down there, close the door, you know. So after I got all that done, 10 o'clock at night, whatever, I'm on Call of Duty or, you know, learning how to code my MySpace or whatever
Yeah.
at that time, just learning about the world through my laptop and Xbox Live, I guess.
How were you told that, hey, you're gonna have to take care of your sister and feed and all that kind of stuff?
It was just kind of assumed. I think it was just kind of not much of a conversation to it. Hey, your dad needs to sleep, and I'm working until 6, 7 o'clock. Here's what you do. You go to here. They kind of drilled the responsibility part of it, I would say,
Okay.
the actual like actions and responsibility, you know, like walk here, go to the school, pick her up, walk her home, make her snacks, whatever. During that time, you know, it was great because I got to bond with my sister. But yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a responsibility at that time where, you know, I don't know if my uh peers were being asked to do a whole lot of responsible things.
Yeah.
At least in my friend group, I think underneath me, uh, in some of the classes below, and in some of the uh, social classes below
Okay.
that were in our high school, I would definitely say that they probably took on a lot more responsibility. But our school was primarily probably like upper middle class kids, and then there were some, you know, on the poverty line, and I would say like just barely in middle class type, and those were kids that were either taking their, you know, brothers and sisters to school too, or you know, working on a farm somewhere because we were out in the boonies where I was from. And I kind of fell into that as well. You know,
Mm.
uh, my parents had to work and weren't significantly college educated. And so I don't think they actually, either one of them got their degree at that time.
Hmm.
And so they just worked, and I had to work, and everybody had to work, and, you know, find time in between that. So
So as far as that's the other question. It's the cooking. What did that look like? What was nutrition for you at that point in high school?
could have been better. Definitely could have been better. Usually I would make a can of chili, a lot of cans of chilies at that time. Just open that up, throw it in a microwavable like glass dish, throw some cheese on it, crackers. That's dinner.
Mm.
I would say that my mom wasn't a phenomenal cook. She had one really good dish and then rotated like 4 or 5 dishes. My dad was notorious for burning steaks and burgers at that
Oh
time.
no.
So if I wanted to like enjoy a meal for myself, I was usually making it.
Okay.
And it's quick, easy nutrition. Like, I don't know. Coach at one time told me just get as many calories as you can in at that time. And it would just, I was burning it as much as I was putting calories in. Cause I
Yeah.
would go from, especially during like off season time, wake up 5, 6 a.m., get ready for school, jump on a bus. I was one of the early stops on that bus ride, so it'd take about an hour to get to school. Um, go through school, either practice something, come back home 6, 7 o'clock at night, try to get some food in, homework, make sure homework's done. And that's when, definitely during like off season was training. Either I was in a different sport or I was training for football at that time. So just busy. Looking back on it, I don't know how I had all the time. I think I just made it happen.
Yeah.
Because I would go from like a practice, and then I remember me and my buddy would drive all the way up north, about an hour north of where I lived, up kind of close to the Canadian border, and hang out up there on the weekends.
Okay.
And I would wake up and then like drive into school from there. And yeah, I was just always on the go.
Mm. Do you have a favorite summer when you were either working or hanging out with friends that before you went off to college?
The summer before was kind of, I had somebody who played college football tell me that this summer was going to be, the summer before going into college was going to be very important. So I
Mm.
did take the time to just soak it in a little bit more, spend a little bit more time on a lake or out in nature or with my friends, doing the things that we enjoyed to do together, because I knew it was all going to change at that point.
Right.
So, and rightfully so. There's just kind of like a natural progression of who stays in your life and who doesn't. And I think those people were there in my life for that moment, that time, for the right reasons.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a really good summer.
Were you guys camping, fishing, running pranks on kids? What were you doing that was so fun?
all, all of the above, I would say. Yeah, trying to get the last pranks in, because I don't know, I never was much of a prankster. I just tried to like enjoy
Okay.
life while it was happening, right? And
Yeah.
I never wanted to get in trouble. My I don't know what that comes from, but I hated getting in trouble. Uh but the other thing is I was a big kid, right? So, who are they going to stop on the way out of the grocery store with a couple extra like candies in his pocket or
Yeah.
whatever? Me, because I'm the big kid and the most visible.
Right.
So I never liked to like stand out in that way. I never wanted to be associated with like a bad kid, because I knew it wasn't going to go well for me if I
Right.
was the bad kid. So
Yeah.
all the like high school parties, drinking and stuff like that, I had to do in secret. So for the most part, it was just, I don't know, just being a guy, being
Yeah.
a bro with my friends at that time. That's all that really mattered, I guess.
For sure. So leading up to college, how did you pick where you were going to go, and then how did that freshman year start off for you?
That was very interesting, because football was the main goal. I wanted to play college football. I wanted to play somewhere big enough where I could end up going to the NFL. Um, that was the dream. It kind of became more and more of a reality as I started getting recruiting more, and recruiting is a business in and of itself. And I just got back from a trip from hanging out with my family up north in Spokane this weekend, and they kind of brought up some things that I had forgotten during that time. A lot of empty promises, my head coach not really selling me that well to another college, et cetera. So what ended up happening was the college that I wanted to go to, Washington State University, there was a lot of interest in me at that time, but there was also a lot of competition. And I was going in as a linebacker. They weren't really looking at me for defensive line, but that's where they wanted me to be. they started scouting me more for that. And then my coach either said or did some things that might not have helped me get onto that program.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they signed a kid that I was competing for a spot with. So I told all the smaller schools that were interested in me, probably like D2, NAIA, and below. I wasn't interested, so I was kind of screwed on that.
Mm.
But I had a connection at Eastern Washington University through a family friend, and got in touch with the coaches, and then started getting recruited by um, Coach Hansen, who was my area recruit. And he told me there's a lot of things that I need to do in order to like get on their radar, get on their program, etc. And I did it. And so I was probably like 3, 4 months transitioning into college towards the end of high school. During that summer, even while I was having fun, where I was focused on how the hell do I get to Eastern?
Yeah.
How do I do the things? How do I pay for this? How do I afford it, etc. Just so that I can walk on to that team.
Hmm. Like what type of things were they saying you need to do? Was it for the combine or you need to know these plays? How did they approach it?
Not quite like that intense, I would say. In college, you're still getting young kids out of high school, and it's a lot different if you're going to Power 5 school or something like that. We were salt of the earth type people, Eastern salt of the earth type of community as well, and so mostly my focus was just trying to get enough like academic scholarships during that time
Okay.
period. So I was writing a lot of papers to help support that, because they weren't going to be able to scholarship me at all. And I had to prove myself in order to get that scholarship. And then um, additionally, uh, there's just a lot of hoops just for me to get on their radar, sending them film, talking with the right coaches, just making sure that I knew where I needed to be on what day, because I wasn't, a guy that signed and put a hat on
Right.
during the National Letter of Intent Day. So during that time period, it was just like, okay, we're going to Eastern. Now what do I do? I got to apply. I got to do this. I got to, there's a lot of administrative work, I would say.
Hmm. So how did your college football career progress from there?
It was a little bit of a slog. First coming in, I mean, I always had determination, worked hard, etc. But my freshman year is like, okay, I could probably earn a scholarship here, but I have to continue to progress. I have to be able to get on the roster. Well, I ended up with a hamstring injury. The first opportunity I was going to get to get some playing time in the game. So lost some trust there. I had a coach at the time that was challenging, very challenging, a very challenging person as well, but lost his trust. So didn't get a good look at that time. And unfortunately, my freshman year, I actually developed a heart disease. I have, yeah, I know, crazy, right?
Oh,
I have, I know, I have paroxysmal atrial fibrillation. I've had it corrected. A lot of, you know, do's and don'ts with that, things that
did,
you're
did
supposed to
they
do,
say
things you're
what
not
caused
supposed to
that?
do. I think I was a little predisposed to it because I think what actually caused it was the pre-workout I was taking during
Mm.
that time, which hadn't been regulated yet and was kind of under the radar in terms of NCAA performance enhancer type, supplements. And then it got banned, and it's a good reason that it got banned because it basically had amphetamine compound in
Yeah.
it. Uh, I don't know if that's the reason, but I do know I do feel like it paused it, right?
Probably
Like
didn't help.
uh yeah, a match to the gas, or
Yeah.
whatever the
What
saying
what
is there. Like
was that not C4? I'm trying to remember which ones kept getting banned and they would just change the name a little bit. But
we
that was one of the reasons why it worked so well is because it had some stuff in it.
Yeah. It was jacked. The one we
Okay.
were taking was jacked. And then ACG3, if all the jacked was out, because everybody was taking it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like out anybody, but like we're all taking it.
Yeah.
And I just happened to get affected by it. I was the one that got affected by it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it was
So
unfortunate.
then when that happens, are you like, hey, I'm done with football, focusing on academics, or where are we headed?
Nope, I stuck with football. I talked with my cardiologist at the time, and worked out a plan of getting the catheter ablation after I was done with football. It was paroxysmal atrial fibrillation. I was young, so I was 18 when I was diagnosed. So during that time period, it was just all kind of like, let's kind of manage this. People have different triggers. I can't, really say what works for me works for anybody else. Like I don't
Right.
seem to get affected by caffeine, but I also do I don't do energy drinks at all
Okay.
anymore. I stick to coffee, right? And that was because I worked on it with my cardiologist. He said there's actually some heart benefits to coffee. So these were kind of just very, very personal conversations with my physician's assistant and the electrophysiologist that I was working with, my cardiologist, to just understand my body, right, during
Yeah.
that time period. I think that added at 18, that's another transitional time period of your life
Absolutely.
that added so much like health stress to it, where I now am like really in tune with my body, whether it's good or bad, overthinking it. A lot of people don't even think about their heartbeat. I'm thinking about my heartbeat all the time,
Mhm.
like making sure that it's in rhythm. Um, so yeah, it was a challenge, but I stuck with football. As long as I wasn't in AFib, I could play. I would go into AFib about once a year, during football. And
Mhm.
then I got cardioverted twice during that time period,
What does that mean?
which is they put me on propofol and I drifted away into sleep, and they put two paddles on me and shocked my heart back into rhythm. I've had that
Oh
done
no.
twice. Yeah, and during that period, that was okay. But that nowadays you have to be on blood thinners before you even do that. And I
Okay.
wasn't taking any medication for it. We were trying to go all natural. So it was interesting. I mean, I still, kind of deal with it today. I'm happy to say that I haven't really had an episode in a long time, probably like
Yeah.
5, 6 years, which is the benefit of the cardio ablation. But
Yeah.
uh, it did add a lot of challenges. I stuck with it. I wanted to play football, so I found a way to continue to play football. And I don't know if there's a theme to everything that has gone on. It's like, okay, here's a major roadblock. Now, like, try to figure out how to get through that.
Mhm.
And happy to say I did, but I mean, it definitely came with its scars, I would say.
Mhm. As far as mentally, how did you deal with such a big roadblock and how did it improve through college as the stuff kept on happening?
As far as a roadblock, again, I think this kind of goes with this new self discovery at 30 is like, I can tell you all the things I wasn't doing. I wasn't meditating on it.
Mhm.
I wasn't keeping my stress levels down. I wasn't, eating the best at that time. I wasn't, and to be honest, a lot of this science is fairly new, too, how to take care of your body. But I will say what just got me through it was just focusing, just like, and maybe that's why it kind of feels good when the shit hits a fan everywhere else that I just dive into my work. But during that time, it was like, all right, got this heart issue. Nothing I can do about it. Let's continue to play football. Let's try to do the best that I can and pretend like I don't have a heart issue, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, because I was still drinking, partying, and slamming Red Bulls at that time, I guess. Not ideal, um, but I just needed an out. I
Yeah.
needed something. I needed something that was going to make me feel different than the way that I was feeling. And
Yeah.
football really helped at that time.
What would you feel your favorite experiences were for football in college?
Just being in the locker room with my boys, my friends. I mean, they're my good friends to this day,
Yeah.
and we're still on a group chat together. We're still in conversations. We've been in each other's weddings, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Football was fun. There's, the personal experience of walking out into a stadium of, 70,000 people, 30,000 people, 40,000 people. Like when we would play UW, when we would play the bigger schools,
Yeah.
we played UW and that was packed. Our stadium was never big, but you go to Montana and you've been up there. Missoula, everybody goes to that
Yep.
game, if the Grizzlies are playing. So it's 30,000, 40,000 people there. So it's exciting. It's really exciting to play in front of people like that and put all your hard work into something. And then, that moment that you get a sack or a tackle or whatever, just a release of energy because it's
Yeah.
all this pent up feeling and all this, et cetera, that just comes out onto the field. And that feels really good.
Mhm.
But the stuff that has really, really stuck with me is just the times we were in the locker room and just laughing. Like we still have our little inside jokes from when we were 18 years old in
Right.
our group chat. So those are the things that I really miss.
Do you have a best game that stands out whenever you're like, hey, like I was playing like lights out, I did the best that I've ever done before?
It took me a while to play consistently. So it
Mm.
was my senior year that I started actually getting some playing time. And I actually was able to start a handful of games my senior year because of injuries and yada yada that I started moving up the depth chart a
Yeah.
bit. And so um, I think one of my best games was playing against Montana. And I believe it was either a first or second game of my senior year because we played them twice. Played them once during the regular season and we played them once in the playoffs. And I believe both were at home. Um, I had a handful of tackle for losses. I was in position a lot of times. I was flying around. I was having fun. The stats would say maybe one or two TFLs, but being a defensive lineman, you kind of take the victory as was I in my gap? Was I in my
Right.
assignment? Did I allow someone else to make that tackle? Because we were very much a gap strict kind of defense where you had to be in your gap. There was no kind of like free roaming around.
Mm.
So that was a really good game for me personally. I feel like that was a really good game for me, but I also had a really, really big sack in University of Northern Colorado game, who had historically been bad, but they were, I think, having a little bit of momentum that year. And my sack was kind of a pivotal time where they were on a drive and it really kind of like stomped their
Yeah.
fire out, I guess. So
Did you
I
have a
ended up,
celebration?
oh yeah, oh yeah. Didn't really know what to do. I had always thought about like what would happen if I got a really big sack and it was on TV and la la, la, and like Cam Newton had like the Superman
Yep.
at the time. I kind of did something similar where I came off the sack and I like ripped did the
Yeah.
Superman and just yelled. And to me, it was more of kind of like, hey, this is my breakout
Yeah.
moment. So it ended up being, it was the picture that they used for, like Eags win, on social media and all that.
Let's
So it was
go.
pretty cool. It was great. Yeah, it was a good time.
That's
A lot
fantastic.
bigger during that time. I
Yeah.
had big beard, big belly, hands up in the air. It was great.
So, coming to the end of your college football career, was it, hey, I'm going to go look at the NFL? Where's our life heading towards the end of school?
Professional. I was focused on what I was going to do because I really didn't think that an NFL team was going to take me if I had the heart disease, right? And it's a business, right? And why should they? They're investing in you. It's not on them to make a special case for somebody with a heart disease.
Right.
So would I have loved to have played? Absolutely. That was a dream. That was the goal. Could I have tried to push it? Possibly. But I think during that time, in order for me to make a team, it was going to be a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I think during that time, I was ready to start focusing on a different chapter of my life. Even though it hurt quite a bit,
Mhm.
I wanted to play football for the rest of my life. But I just saw the road ahead, and you know, I don't know, premonition, something told me, divine intervention during that time, that it wasn't for me. Hurts still to this day. I would love to be playing on Sundays, but did I really have a real shot at it? I don't know. There's a lot of people who probably were in my position as well that were like, some people say I do. You hear a word or two, an announcer says this guy has an NFL style body, etc. Like I was getting like good kind of marks, I would say,
Yeah.
but it wasn't consistent. I wasn't in the newspaper all the time. I wasn't getting the buzz, the media that, Cooper Cup or other guys that I played with who ended up going to the NFL. So for
Yeah.
me, it was going to be a lot of work on me to like just get myself out there. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure someone could say like, "Oh man, he kind of gave up," but I just felt like at that time wasn't. I didn't really have a shot at it.
Yeah.
So
Well, usually the stories of like rising from the ashes or like making it to the NFL, it was the one out of 1,000 people that and the other 999 didn't make it. And that's all they
mhm.
had. As far as that next direction you were heading, you said there was some divine intervention or whatever it was. What direction did that push you in?
Um, internships, get connected, network. I saw my grandparents, who I had mentioned were the wealthy ones in the family,
Yeah.
network really, really well, and I still do that to this day. Very thankful for just watching them. And in our little corner of Spokane, not a whole lot of big business going on there, except if you're in the blue collar industry. We had Kaiser Aluminum, like big factories, right? It's a company that, or it's a city that gets really hurt by things like pandemics and strikes and things like that
Yeah.
because there's a lot of blue collar workers. So um, they were blue collar, but they were business people and they had connections, and I saw what they did with those connections, so I wanted to emulate that. So I just put my name out there. I started talking to um, the head of internships for our department in the marketing department. His name's Larry Davis. I still talk to him to this day, and his wife too, Eldana. Great people. They helped me start talking to people who were involved in media and marketing during that time. I think in my textbooks, I was still learning about phonathons. So I really had a lot of, like I had a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
So I just started immersing myself. I got an opportunity to intern with the Museum of Arts and Culture at that time. I ran a big survey for them. I had underclassmen that I was managing their senior projects as well, because I ended up actually double majoring. So I finished business management going into my senior year of football. Know that I'm done with football after
Right.
that year, or my redshirt senior year. Have some time to not necessarily kill, but I only need one more quarter to finish up my marketing uh, degree or major as well. So I took on a senior capstone class that I ran, TA'd for, did this whole research project for the Museum of Arts and Culture.
Was it interesting doing was the topic more interesting or was running the class more interesting?
The topic, I've always been kind of a, I like the material, I like the
Okay.
content of it. I've been in managerial positions since I was managing, I guess, kids at that age, or, underclassmen or people who were a class below me at that time. And I don't know if I've ever really loved it, but I've just realized like I have been put into this position, so I better kind of, rise to the occasion and be a good
Yeah.
manager. But I always really enjoyed the material. And at that time, what we were focusing on was the board of trustees for the Museum of Arts and Culture, struggling with, there was a decrease in donations during that time and less membership overall. So they wanted to survey the community in the higher household income communities of what would they like to see in terms of events,
Yeah.
what would get them to donate, what would get them into the door. So we did a pretty big statistical study for 2 quarters. I ran it and uh, presented in front of them, and et cetera, et cetera. It was a good experience right off the bat from
Mhm.
college.
Where do
It
you
was
move on to after that?
well, before we move on to that,
Yep.
funny story about that. The guy that was running the Museum of Arts and Culture, their, I don't know what you call him, dean, whatever. He ended up getting in trouble for embezzling money and putting it into his daughter's college fund. So you wonder why all the donations and stuff were not down year over year, was because
Yeah.
that guy was filtering it.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, found that out a few years later. But
He must have been
uh
furious when you started asking people for more funding and stuff
oh,
like
I know.
that.
Yeah, yeah, no. Get the limelight out of my
Yeah.
way. I've got my little, slush fund here.
Yeah. That's
Um,
wild.
yeah, I know, wild story. Um, from there, my girlfriend at the time worked at the Buckle. I got a part-time job at the Buckle, stocking. And I had weird hours because I also picked up another internship during that time where I was going door to door selling advertising space on um, the Valley, Spokane Valley, I don't know, newspaper,
Right.
whatever it was, like monthly editorial, um, and hated that.
What
And
what
once I
was
got it,
what was the
yeah,
sales pitch for that? Because my sister had to do that for I forget what I think it was like DePaul or something like that. She had to get marketing for the back of their magazine or whatever it was. I'm like, who are you selling on this? Who are you convincing that this is going to give you a good ROI?
right. I mean, it was tough. I hit up the ones that had done it the year before,
Okay,
first and
smart.
foremost. So, go lowest hanging fruit, be like, hey, you guys want to do this again? How many calls did you get from that?
Yeah,
But it's tougher when they're telling you like, hey, there's 3 people that are definite no's, so we need to fill those spots. And you're going around and you're like, hey, it's going to cost you $500, and this is not a very big event that we're going to be putting on for this. Best of luck to you, kind of thing. I always find it tough. Uh, I mean, even now, I'm a digital marketer.
right.
I do it for my job, but now if you don't have value, if you're not selling anything that's going to be able to return like
Right.
that, yeah, that's a really tough pitch. And it sucked. And I was driving around in my little Buick Regal at the time and trying to trying to make it work, but it just wasn't working. I was sick of Buckle. I was sick of that internship. So the coolest company in Spokane at the time was eTails, which was the largest third-party marketplace reseller in the world at the time. It was a really good opportunity for me to jump into, but I started on their purchasing order floor, and I fought for an extra dollar because the position was a 2 year position or
Yeah.
2 year degree position. I was like, well, I have a 4 year degree, so I deserve to earn more. Well, they gave me a dollar, and I started answering about 100 emails a day, making sure an X amount of widgets were getting to the destination. And, if there was some missing, why are those missing? So, yeah, that was my life for about a year, I would say.
So are we working 40 hours on that? Or are we taking work home with us?
40 hours, luckily left the work home on that. We learned kind of the early morning and late night grinds from those because sometimes our queue would get so backed up that we would do once or twice a month. We would have to come in at like 4 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, and get to work and work like a 12-hour shift that day. So,
Man.
yeah. And then when I actually started getting interested in understanding, like, there was this moment where I was like, am I going to keep doing this? Am I going to grow in this? Or am I just going to become like a bartender and try to figure out something else? Right.
Yeah.
And I really had a moment during that time because they were trying to push me to get to the managerial position in that position, which I wanted no part of doing. As far as a job of like, hey, hit this button over 100 times today,
Right.
like that was the epitome of that job. And I was just not gonna grow in that.
So an email comes in, you read it, and then just send it to the right spot, or
Pretty much, like I had two screens up. One screen was the back end of Amazon, saying like, "Hey, you're expecting this many units," and
okay.
then I would match the shipping documents, the what is it called, bill of ledger, whatever. I forget what it is. I'm glad I forgot, but
I won't fact check you.
basically, you take the documents and you look at the documents. You say, oh, there's 97. The truck picked up 97 of these units. Go over to the left side. There's your Amazon queue up. Okay, I see order ZYXWTUV, whatever, with 100 units supposed to come in. I need to change it to 97. I then need to go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, 3 of those units didn't make it on this. We expect, repayment or whatever. And it was like that 100 times over. Or
So
like, oh, this ship it's coming in late. Go ahead.
not no, I would just say so not a lot of time for creativity.
No, no, not at all. And I don't know. I've always been part right brain, left brain. I do like systems. I do like processes. I probably over process, over analyze before I really get into something.
Yeah.
But I really like to lay that foundation so that I can feel like the bases are covered so that I can be creative and do, the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So that job was just not speaking to me at that time. And, kind of talked about the early years and stuff. I really felt like I tried to fit into this mold. I tried to like be this person, be the best at it.
Right.
Now I'm, hitting send 100 times a day. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
Um, there's no self-expression in this at all. And I really felt like I was just really fighting against like being able to be myself in a lot of these situations. So I needed something else. I needed something else. And so at the time, it's kind of an ultimatum. I kind of gave them like a 1 month notice of like, I'm going to start looking for other work. If nothing else comes up, you know, here that I can work with, then I'm just going to leave. Like, I'm not going to have a job, I guess, because I
Right.
can't do this anymore. And they were like, being me, yes, I'm there 5 minutes early every day,
Yeah.
and coffee in hand and hammering out, getting all the work done and etc. But inside, I'm dying, I'm
Right.
dying inside. So they were like, "Oh, you're so great at this. We're really looking at you being a manager." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Screw that." So I did start getting curious about like why are we buying 100 units of this? Like what
Okay.
was the 4 or 5 steps before we decided yes we need 100 widgets from X company, and we're going to
Yeah.
sell this because I saw it every day, like tons and tons of orders. They did 1 million in revenue. I think my just after I had left. And that was a huge day.
Hmm.
One day, $1 million in the door, like that's huge, right?
So
So
we got Amazon over here. We got somebody that puts an order on Amazon, and then you're the guy moving it to Amazon.
we were a twofold kind of firm, an
Okay.
agents. I hate using the term agency because I always think of it being too small. We were a full on, we'll sell it for you and we'll also do your marketing for you operation. So
Oh,
it was a firm. Yeah, it was a third party marketplace
gotcha.
firm.
Not just a
I'm not a
fulfillment. Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. We were doing a lot of, FBA stuff. We were acting as a reseller. Anybody can have a storefront on Amazon. At the time, I don't know the numbers. I don't spend a whole lot of time in third party marketplaces as much anymore.
Yeah.
I work a lot more D2C, or B2B. But at the time, Amazon had like 51% of total rev on their website, and then resellers made up 49%. And we were like the largest reseller out of that 49%. So we operated, Amazon was a giant mall at the time. We were the
Yeah.
biggest store at that mall, right?
That's pretty
So we
cool.
purchased the
Lot to learn.
product. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot to learn at that time. And that really did set the foundation. So I still kind of have that Amazon experience of e-commerce, mass sales, mass marketing, etc. Good foundation to learn all that on. Um, but they had a position open up where I could actually be selling to the companies, selling to
Okay.
these companies, and mostly kind of a consulting position, saying like, hey, like you're doing good, you could be doing better. Work with us. We'll sell your product for you. We'll buy it from you wholesale. We'll also do advertising. You'll make your money by us doing the volume. You'll
Right.
make up the margin that you lost selling wholesale by just pure volume that we're going to do for you. And then, we tack on marketing for them, et cetera, and take off. And I had some pretty big deals while I was there, which kind of sparked the sales part of my career and I was able to throw that on my resume. Every position that I went to since then was the focus has been like, how do we process this better? Like, how
Mm.
do we make this process better? I came up with a smoother transition from research to actual purchase order. Um, Implemented that. It got company wide, installed, and we ran with it and got, a great pat on the back. I'm killing it. I have one of the top 3 companies in terms of purchase orders coming in. I got 3M to work with us, which
Oh,
was
nice.
pretty cool at the time. Yeah, yeah,
So
household name.
so you would work with large companies such as that. That's wild.
Yeah, so I had tools, office, and outdoors. We definitely didn't start that way though.
Yeah.
We didn't have the credibility to like get those, but we were also the ones that brought Scrub Daddy to
Okay.
Amazon. We worked a lot with the Shark Tank people. Either if they won or had it,
Yeah.
we had a handful that ended up on Shark Tank, and we ran their Amazon.
So when you approach somebody and you're looking at either like 3M or a Shark Tank kind of like new type of person, what was the
Yeah,
traditional faults that you would see that you're like, "Oh, we have this phenomenal system to put it through." Like what were most of the people lacking?
just clarity on their page, right?
Okay.
At the time, Amazon has very strict guidelines as to like how to fill out your page. We were an A+ partner. It was the first time that they started running out like A+ listings where you can have basically a landing page, a customizable landing page within the bounds of Amazon's framework or
Yeah.
structure of their page of, 3 lifestyle images and video running and on the second scroll, but below the fold, and descriptions fully filled out, SEO compliant, SEO optimized. We'll do your images for you, et cetera, et cetera. So pitch going into it, especially in my department, which was tools, office, and outdoors, the most unsexy department to work at there. Like I had friends who were my best friend in the company and a really good friend to this day was in electronics and was getting like free stuff from like Sony and whatever, and convinced that company to allow him to get a free stand-up desk because that was all the rage at the
Yeah.
time. And I'm over here getting like personal greenhouses for your like tomato plants and stuff like that. I'm like, man, this department sucks. But I
I
got
got
3M.
I got 72 tomatoes. I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a slog. I've always, like I said, I've always been kind of a nose to the grindstone, salt of the earth kind of person. So I took it. I owned it. It was my department, tools, office, and outdoors. All that was great. Get 3M, get all the business, install a new process, et cetera. I'm just not getting paid very much. I'm bringing on this company that's we're doing like I think we ended up doing about 3 million with 3M, surprisingly. By the time everything was all said and done, in terms of purchase orders, and I don't get any of that, right?
Well,
And
that's what I was
so,
going to ask is if there is a bonus for bringing him on because I feel like the incentive kind of goes away to bring in larger fish at that point. Like if I'm going to
right,
be doing the same job, I mean, where's the extra effort?
we were still very much in startup mode at that time,
Oh,
even
okay.
though we had like 200 employees, including the warehouse that we had. But it was kind of like the second wave. They had already changed their name from their first name. They had moved out of the closet of someone's office, right? And then now they got this really nice building, and now we need to get ping pong tables and stuff like that so that we can get younger talent like myself and don't have to pay them very well, but we know they're going to
Yeah.
work hard, and we know their turnover. And the model really was like pay your managers really well, but like under it's going to
Yeah.
churn and burn. And it was a cushy job for a lot of people there. I hate to say it, but it was, a lot of not the breadwinners who were in the managerial kind of positions there that were comfortable because there was more money coming in. And that's regardless of gender, like it was male, female,
Right.
whatever, like their spouse tended to make more money than them. So
Yeah.
they were comfortable. So no one was moving, and I'm not making a lot of money and not getting commission off that. They end up installing commission after I left because I hear it from my friends and
Yeah.
stuff. But I needed something different. Spokane wasn't going to be great for growth. I didn't want to go to Seattle because it was expensive as hell during that time because of the Amazon boom and because
Right.
of the Microsoft boom during that time period. This is 2014, 2014, 2015. And so I reconnected with a friend that I went to high school with and also played against in college. He went to the University of Montana.
Okay.
He said he was moving down to Phoenix. And I, decided to quit my job. I did hit the job market early, but I went down there without a job. I sold my motorcycle. I sold pretty much everything that I had except for my bed,
Mhm.
and like moved on down.
What did so since you're only working 40 hours, what did life look like since you weren't preparing for sports, you weren't playing football, you didn't have all that extra time going to that? How did your life change after work wise?
I gained weight.
Okay.
I gained all the weight back that I had lost during that time period. I knew after football was done. When I hung it up, I was 285 pounds. I, in 3 months, got down to 235.
Okay.
Not recommended, but I had a friend that was starting their fitness program,
Yeah.
and it wasn't necessarily geared. to like one-on-one personal coaching. So everybody's calories are exactly the same. And so I
Oh,
end up
wow.
coming out of that. Yeah, no, I end up coming out of it looking like a prisoner of war. Uh, so I just had like all this loose skin, like I'm still fairly strong, still fairly athletic, but it was a lot
Yeah.
of body weight movement, a lot of running, a lot of, not a lot of calories. And I just it fell off. And so 40 hours of work on my own now, struggling to get myself into the gym as much because, why do I have to? I'm not playing sports anymore,
Right.
drinking more, eating good food at the time, and yada, yada. I put the weight back on, about 20 pounds back on. So I was like 255 and I wasn't wearing it well. So I decided like a lot of things have to change after that. So, and I was, the plan you said, kind of got into the transition of the Phoenix side. People in Phoenix are good looking, and I was like, I got to get in shape if I'm going to hang out down there. So, yeah,
I mean, hey, it's hard to be in Phoenix. It's just in general, it's hot. Like
it is hot.
the more body you got, the more heat that's going on.
That was another part. Maybe some thermogenics also kind of help keep the calories off as well down here. So, maybe through my lens, being in Spokane where our winters last 6 months out of the year, we're all
Yep.
in like hibernation body, like full beards and, carrying a little extra weight so that we can get through the winter.
So when you moved to Arizona, you said you were job hunting, but did you start something with your buddy or you just gonna move in with your buddy?
I was just going to move in with my buddy,
Okay.
and he had a roommate already, and who went to college with him, another athlete. She was on the track team. Gave her the master bedroom because it had a bathroom, and us dudes were going to share
Good
the
move.
bathroom up front, right? Yeah, smart. Um, but we both were kind of just in our, entry level career positions at that time. So my buddy was going through all the financial series that you got to take. He was working at Vanguard, going through their kind of
Okay.
school, 1 year school. And then I was working for a Boston based advertising firm that had a branch in Phoenix, and there's like 4 or 5 of us in there. But even before I got to that position, it was 2 to 3 months of where the hell am I at? I go from a city of the DMA is only 500,000 people. I go
Okay.
to a city of 5 million people, right?
Okay.
DMA of 5 million in Phoenix. And the roads are big, people are better looking, and things are, it's hot, it's scary. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I spent like a year. I remember the moment that I was on my way down to Arizona. I took a stop in Utah, and I stayed in Salt Lake, and I Airbnb'd a room at someone's house.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because he said he was there, but I never actually saw him there. So I was getting a little creeped out. And I just remember like laying in the bed because I had the next 14 hours of my journey the next day and
Yeah.
thinking to myself, how the hell did I get here? Like, why am I doing this? What is
Yeah.
like, I'm from little Spokane, Meade, Washington, and I'm trying to do something that's way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So just did it. I needed to get away. Didn't spend too much time talking about the family stuff, but there was a lot of pain and shame and just shit that came from that I did not enjoy, that I kind of wanted to get away from. Plus, the warm was good because I was sick of shoveling my driveway every, winter, and just scraping enough of my windshield so that I could like see out of it and get to work on time. Um, that wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
So and there was no business opportunities in Spokane that I felt aligned with what I needed. So moved to Phoenix, made that trip. 2 3 months into that, it gets tight on the wallet because I don't have a job. I need to, go to Old Town enough times and blowing $100, just to have a few drinks, was really hurting the wallet at the time. I had a girlfriend that at the time that had to be seen, wanted to be seen. So
Yeah.
it was one of those relationships that couldn't sit down and watch a movie together, but as long as we were out and partying, it was a great relationship, right?
Right.
So I was being forced into things that just kind of really weren't me. I was having fun, but
Yeah.
looking back at it, didn't align with my values. So I got to get a job, right? And Yelp, which was another churn and burn company at the time, Indeed, like Phoenix is known for just mass uh, sales floors, miles and dials. You're on a floor of 100 salespeople, and numbers, crunch. And I understand the benefit of that big business purpose, et cetera. It just wasn't aligning with me at the time. I had just came from a startup. I really liked kind of the feeling of having a little bit of that creativity and trying to answer problems instead of having some sort of corporate policy to answer the problem, right?
Yeah.
You get a little bit of more freedom and unique ways to solve solutions. So I knew that those weren't going to be good positions for me. But the only job that was offering me at the time outside of Yelp and Indeed was DoorDash.
Okay.
And I worked at DoorDash corporate in their sales department here in Phoenix for a day and a half.
Let's go.
And I know, right? I made it a day and a half. And yeah, I quit that job because of the Boston advertising firm that I told you about actually called me back after they said there wasn't a position for me
Yeah.
and said, hey, we said we'd be in touch. We told you to, keep your ears open. And sure enough, a month later, they came back and I was like, hell yeah. Like I went up to my sales manager at that time. I was like, hey, sorry to do this to you, but I'm leaving. I left at
Out.
lunch and he was real pissed, so pissed. Because they asked, right? I'd be pissed too, but you ask, like, hey, do you have any other job offers? Because you want to know, like, where you're
Right.
at, how much time should I spend on, like, recruiting this person? How much room do I have to negotiate their salary? Yada, yada. So, day and a half into it, I'm shaking this guy's hand saying, like, hey, sorry, this ain't working for me. And I go to a small advertising firm here in Phoenix and
Yeah.
start doing some unique shit. So, it was cool.
So give me a breakdown of an advertising firm because all I can think of is what was the show with John Draper or I keep forgetting his,
Oh, Mad Men, Mad
yeah,
Men.
that's all I can imagine. And then also what women think. That's the only thing I know as far as
Yeah,
advertising goes.
yeah. Another good one to throw in your movie repertoire for that would be, I think it's Friends with Benefits.
Okay.
Because what's his name? Just got in trouble, but Justin Timberlake is an
Yeah.
ad man in that as well. But not quite like that. I
No.
mean, you in college, you watch those shows and you're like, wow, yeah, this is what I'm getting into. And it's nothing like that at all.
Oh
So
no, my hopes and dreams.
it was an advertise. I know, right? But you learn along the way, you figure out, what it is and where you fit into that kind of part of the industry. But this particular firm is a martech, and I would call it a PPC firm. We did a little bit of social, but most of our focus was on-site engagement tools that we
Okay.
um, would install on sites. At the time, cart abandonment was not a feature that was just built into your website builder. So we had a pixel that would fire track. We had our own pixel that would fire that on-site engagement tool that we could customize. We always use the term interstitial, one of my least favorite words because it's really tough to say on a sales call. But uh, the our pitch always was, we'll do your ads and we'll also make your conversion rate go higher. We'll control the full funnel, which to this day I really enjoy managing the full funnel because you know where your slip ups are, right? But at that time, I'm just selling it. So smiles and dials, 30, you know, whoever's listening may laugh at this, but like I did 30 dials a day and tried to send 30 emails. And, um, I got buddies who were doing probably about 100 dials a day. So my stuff, I felt like it was burning on me. I was tired at the end of the day during that. And I
So are
knew
there
that eventually go ahead.
I was just saying, are there 100 calls, just cold calls that people aren't interested, and your 30s are more like a little bit like warmer leads, or like what is that?
That's No, they were very cold. I was doing all my own prospecting as
Oh,
well. I would have Zoom info, Hunter IO, uh, LinkedIn, uh, Sales Navigator, 5 different platforms just to find out who a person was. And I looked up you before on the LinkedIn thing, and that's just a habit, just to like figure out, who the hell am I talking
I
to
was
before I talk to them.
I was so happy I finally spelled my name correctly on there. I made a LinkedIn like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I think I spelled my name wrong. Didn't even have like a profile picture because like I lost my login.
Oh man,
Like 4 or 5 years ago, I fixed it. I was like, oh, phew.
it's well, and you told me, oh, I haven't seen that in years. I was like, you're one of those unique people who are able to do what they do and not have to have this business profile of like yourself button up and like
Yeah.
this is who I am and etc. Like you get to uniquely be you no matter what. Like, I
Uh-huh.
always feel like on LinkedIn, everybody is just like you go to their LinkedIn, it's their facade,
Yeah.
right? So it was kind of refreshing to know that you hadn't like been on it in a
I
while.
hadn't
So
curated it.
yeah, it was kind of nice. But that came from during that time period where
Yeah.
I was prospecting and I was trying to find, I have all these different sales techniques and I maybe one day I'll write a book about it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm good enough to write a book about some of these things, but I learned my own kind of processes and methods and did fairly well at the job. At first, I was calling colleges because we would throw our pixel on their website publications. So if it was
Nice.
like down here we have ASU, maybe the Daily Devil, or I don't know, whatever it's called. And then we would track all that information in our pixel. And then we would sell advertising space on websites because at the time it was a lot easier to do third party and second party data.
Right.
So we would sell this information, this data to local businesses, and we would say like, hey, we've got 1,000 readers a month on this website. Let's sell you this data so that you can track their data and you can advertise for, I don't know, Fuzzy's Tacos down in Arizona State,
Mhm.
right? Tempe. So um, very unique to go into that because I got the taste of the 3 p.m. and then I got into this advertising solutions and martech company, and it was the first time I got to like travel back to a headquarter and like go through their training process. And again, though, it was just very startup feel. So I was able to work my way into actually being an AE there, going on uh, like the trade show tours and things like that. It's a really good experience. Was able to learn a lot, and it was very foundational in kind of where I'm at today because I had a really good friend there that I would stay an extra hour or two after work and just watch him do the media buying, and I
Okay.
would try to understand, you know, why are we buying this? I was selling it. I wanted to know why we were buying that. And that kind of led to my interest in maybe doing something a little bit more than just miles and dials. Like maybe I should get my hands on this and start doing some ad buying or,
Yeah.
media management in general.
So it seems like
So
we're enjoying the style of work that we have at that point, the company that you're at. How was the mental and physical health for you outside of work at that point?
at that point was probably some of the best I felt in a while. Was exercising daily. I got on this really good workout program that was designed by another fitness guy back home, and lost a lot of weight. I was down to like 223 in shape. I went, before and after picture from like 285 to 223, six pack. I finally achieved that six pack, right? That I wanted from sixth grade or whatever. So I finally get it, feel good, etc. Um, Sales aren't actually coming in. I had a lot of deals come or that were like, oh, next quarter, next quarter. And they were real, they were
Yeah.
signed contracts and stuff. But the work, the lack of success that was going on in work, getting on PIP at that time, and actually getting demoted really started to leak in and cut through all that bullshit of my facade that I was creating, right? Had the hot girlfriend, had the, nice body, wasn't really driving a nice car. Still have my 2012 Toyota Tacoma, in an apartment complex with, two other roommates, etc. And I'm thinking like, I ain't shit, right? Like, now I'm not able to make sales. Now I'm not able to, um, make my commission that I'm normally used to. My salary, my base salary was like 30K. I'm barely making over that because I had one client that was spending like $1,000 a month at that time.
Hmm.
And that's when things kind of started to flip. Like, all right, the honeymoon of Phoenix is over. The honeymoon of this relationship that I'm in is kind of over. Things were good, things were going well. Now it's not going so well because you've kind of built this foundation on very superficial things, right?
Okay.
And I kind of went into a little bit of a depressive period during that time period and kind of carried into my next job that I took. I started working for a small boutique agency here, in Phoenix that had some very big clients. Again, another learning experience, bought media for them, brought CTV and OTV to that agency. That was my, mentioned that I would go after processes, something new, something cool to bring to a company. Did really well at it. Still feeling like crap on the inside. Stomach's going through issues. I think I developed like stomach issues during that time period
Yeah.
because of all the stress. And I lose my girlfriend at that time. I moved into the worst, second, I would say the second worst apartment that I've ever lived in.
Okay.
And just things weren't going well. Like, I know that's, all this stuff was happening within the span of like a year and a half,
Yeah.
right? Um, I got really, I got really depressed, and I don't know, it's funny, but I would just get done with work. Once again, I always do what I have to do, right?
Yeah.
I always work out. I always make sure I'm fed. Always make sure I'm doing well at work. But at the end of the day, I was done mentally, physically, etc. And I would just me and my girlfriend would split off into other rooms and do our own thing. I was playing a lot of video games at the time, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but I always kind of find that that's my escape. Um, when I'm really, really down, I'll go escape. I'll go just be reclusive and introverted for long periods of time. And during that time period, transition from that job, things aren't going well. Need to find a new job, still interested in this industry. Maybe I can find some spark in media managing. I have fun at work. Things are great at work per se, when I'm at the agency. But as soon as I get home, like bills aren't getting paid, or, I'm not making enough, and my girlfriend at the time was also putting the pressure on for that too, like get a real job, get friends, get etc.
Yeah.
And I just went into a really bad depression.
So do you write things down as far as like, hey, this isn't going well, this isn't going well, or is it more of a just in general, I'm walking around life and just these negative thoughts are just bombarding me?
That during that time was actually where I rediscovered writing.
Okay.
I used to write a lot. I was actually a very good creative writer in high school. Out of all the subjects that I was good at, year in, year out, getting freaking dean's list, et cetera. The one class that I just kicked ass at was creative writing, or writing uh, composition in general. I had two AP classes that I think I scored full points on the AP tests for the writing portion.
Yeah.
Best grades I ever got. Right. I didn't touch it after college. During college, it was kind of just something that you had to do to write papers, etc. And my mindset kind of tracked, was around that. You only write because if you have to, right?
Right.
I started writing poetry again, which was weird at the time. I started sharing it because I didn't know what else to do, I guess. I don't know. I guess I was just looking for an answer or whatever. But I wasn't writing journals. I wasn't doing anything. I was just expressing how I felt at the time through poetry.
Hmm.
And I lost an aunt to alcoholism during that time.
Yeah.
My family has struggled with alcoholism, which has led a lot to those divorces and, pretty up and down upbringing that I had.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just needed to find a way to kind of like break through this family curse, I guess, or whatever. And I would just write it out. I'd write it in poetry because I didn't know how to write it in a way that felt good. Because if I was just putting it in bullets at that time, it was like, yeah, I know, like I'm sad. I know that this makes
Yeah,
me feel bad,
I get
etc. But for
it.
me,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
For
on it,
me, I
boss.
needed some sort of like therapeutic release to it.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
when do you feel like you hit a rock bottom, or was it just we're kind of close to the bottom and a steady build up, or what was your trajectory as you started turning things around?
I will pat myself on the back during this time. Is like if I can see the bottom, I will pick myself back up and
Okay.
like figure out what I need to do to not be there. So breaking up with my girlfriend, having to move out, get into a crappy apartment that I can afford. I didn't want roommates anymore. I end up getting a studio, which the only saving grace of that place was it had a killer view of Camelback Mountain. So I spent a lot of time on my porch at that time, just looking at the mountain. But again, you know, I knew that the things that weren't aligning with my values to like go back to it, not setting my value set from an early stage in life,
Yeah.
I had a tendency to just escape and numb and fill over these feelings with things that just didn't serve me at the time. So writing was the only thing that I really felt like filled my cup or made me feel creative at that time, or made me feel like I was able to get some of these emotions out, and started with poetry during that time. And then now I do journal. I journal a lot. I
Okay.
write down everything, all my thoughts now, because I got back into that habit, thankfully, at that time.
Hmm.
And from that point on, I write everything. I
Yeah.
have a whiteboard with dumb notes on it. I have so many notebooks around. I just have to get it out.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
are you stacking wins at that point? And if so, like how do you celebrate as the life is changing around for us?
I don't know if I have ever recognized the wins in the moment until it's like a year or two later. And it takes a while for it to set in of like, dude, like that was actually a really, really bad time. Proud of you for getting out of that. I'm happy that you got, to a certain place and crawled your way out of it. But I don't know if that feeling comes until like a year after it. I don't really appreciate the moment as it's maybe that's in a lot of areas in my life, unfortunately. And I think that honestly kind of ties back to that feeling of never being good enough,
Yeah.
or like having to be an achiever or whatever. Is like, no, this moment right now is not good enough for you to enjoy as it is. And
Hmm.
for me to be able to like look back at those moments and say, man, that was really tough, and now you are in a better position,
Yeah.
you have to be happy about that. I would say that I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to get better at the wins, trying to get better at the better self-talk, things like that. But at that time, wasn't really looking at it as like independence or autonomy or any sort of gain at that time. It was just like I have a struggle that's in front of me and I need to overcome it.
Yeah. So how did you get to there to where you are now currently?
More struggles, more
Yeah.
pain, more, bouncing around, more trying to figure out where I fit. I started working for a large, after the agency, doing a handful of good things, managing millions of dollars in media spent over there. I start working for a local brand. I go brand side, $315 million revenue company, based here in Phoenix, outdoor appliances. I'm under NDA, so I can't really
Yeah.
talk a ton about that. But big company, do really well with them. Get a whole division, start hiring people underneath me. I start feeling like, man, this is everything that I've ever wanted as far as like a career goes. Like I could
Yeah.
really like grow here. But again, kind of run into the same things. Like I hate to say it, but money is a motivator. Money would have allowed my family to be a lot more stress free
Right.
growing up. And, had they managed it, luckily, you had some education of how to manage your money behind the scenes, take the time, effort, research to learn that on your own. Doing okay financially, but always want more. So, I'm hiring all these people, doing good, killing it in terms of our return on investment. My biggest like I would say professional like win. The biggest star that I could put on my professional resume was at that time my team was achieving a 9-to-1 return on investment on
That's
or
wild.
return on that. I know, I know. And we only were allowed to spend 40K a month on the website for a $350 million company, 40K a month. Maybe it sounds good, maybe it sounds good, uh, bad, but we were also spending millions of dollars in areas that were untrackable, and we had no idea how
Right.
well it was doing or how bad it was doing. But I could tell you that we were doing a 9-to-1 in my department. So that's my claim to fame, I guess.
That's incredible. And would you say that was just implementing like a couple specific great ideas or just stacking what you knew was like a good te like how do you feel like you were able to succeed so well?
You kind of brought it up earlier. And in telling you, my life story here, it kind of makes sense where the progression went to at that point, because I started at just looking at one product, one listing, one landing page. Is that website, that landing page, giving enough information to induce purchase, right?
Right.
Are we doing the advertising right to get that person back to that listing to purchase? Now you start looking at it from a website standpoint, much larger. Hey, can we get engagement tools on it? Can we, increase their uh, traffic to their website? and overall convert that website at a better rate. That's a much more integrated approach. And you're looking at gaps now. And then, prior to this job at that agency, I had a little bit more. I was buying media. I was also looking at email. I was also doing social media. I was doing this. So I started to understand more and more and more of the ecosystem, the digital landscape, the layers, and how all these things are connected. And it's never perfect. Policies change all the time.
Yeah.
There's new and cool out there. AI is the big buzzword right now. But there's always kind of these foundational things that you lean on in the professional world too, to sit there and say, oh, this is a gap, right? We're missing a touch point here, or this touch point ain't saying what we want it to. We're not selling the why, we're selling what it does, blah, blah, blah. Like you can see statistically and through the data where your gaps are. And
Yeah.
so looking at that from a big picture, we were able to say, our email sucks, our website conversion rate's terrible, it's bad here, time on site, loading time, all these things. And then it was, okay, let's get a team to help support, those areas.
Yeah.
We need an email manager because we're getting a lot of cart abandonment and also not really engaging our customers who were fanatical. People who buy cooking utensils for outdoors or appliances, like you end up with like probably 20% that are just spending thousands of dollars a
Oh
year
yeah.
on it.
Absolutely.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So,
We go camping. We're actually leaving tomorrow at 4 or something like that. And some of the guys is just like, hey, I went camping twice this year, but I just bought a whole new setup.
right,
I got the
right.
coolest, the lightest, the whatever it is. And it's like, oh man, can I borrow that?
And right, yeah, like unless you're working in insurance or tax, which I work a lot in now, but CPG or like appliances, things like that, you may have a unique brand where you end up with just fanatics,
Yeah.
right? And in that case, like REI, you've got like the REI lifers and stuff like that
Right.
that just live and breathe it. So um, we were lucky to have a really fanatical fan base, and we needed to lean into that more. Now that company was always at wars with what was the way that the organization was, the amount of turnover that I had in my direct report, a handful of just bad process, and
Okay.
ultimately a private company that was uh, all else fails, it gets trumped by the owners of the company, right?
Mm,
And that's where you end up spending millions of dollars in something that you can't
right.
track based off an emotion or a feeling versus putting more money into the 9-to-1 return on ad spend. So I'm frustrated. I'm not getting paid what I think I should get paid.
Yeah.
I'm working my ass off. I'm staying up till the wee hours of the morning so that I can turn around a QBR. I remember I used to have like 3 weekly reports that I would have to bust out
Mm,
um, manually because the company didn't want to invest in our BI or any sort of automating
right.
statistics or data analysis tools. So I'm doing all this manually. I had spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets and putting our figures in and making sure that the formulas and blah blah blah, wasting time on that, getting text messages at 8 a.m or 8 p.m 9 p.m saying like, hey, how come this is misspelled on the social media, or hey, by the way, can we get the, oh my god, don't even get me started, we had these stupid dog bandanas that we needed to get up on the website, and they were supposed to be just promotional,
Yeah.
right? They were just supposed to be something that you handed out at booths. Well, I had to drop everything and get these damn dog bandanas up on the website because they're supposed to be a hot seller. I think we sold 2 of them, and the 2 were to company employees. So, but that was a text message that I got at like 8 p.m, 9
Yeah.
p.m. wake up in the morning, try to get to work on time. I was always 15 minutes late,
Yeah.
and get reprimanded for that. But I'm supposed to drop everything when we're doing a 9-to-1 on return. I'm fighting for more budget, and I gotta get these stupid dog bandanas up that don't even have like a SKU to scan on it or anything, man. Like it won't even work in our ERP system. It's just a pain in the ass. So I got sick of that, and luckily at that time, um, I had a guy that I played football with in college who's in our group chat. He got me at the company that he was VP of,
Okay.
and I started getting into tax resolution, which was a hot stint at that company, probably 3-4 months. Then they got ownership change. They
Yeah.
started dividing the business within 4 months of me showing or being there, and things were nasty. Things weren't going well. I'm friends with a guy that's at the top of that company, and so um, it wasn't great, right?
Mhm.
And I needed a way out, so I decided to go. Once I got uh, initially canned because I got fired from that job because of all the transition was going
Right.
on, mergers and blah blah blah.
Wanted to bring their own
Layoffs.
people in.
Yep, exactly. So layoffs happened. I got involved in that, or was part of that. Unfortunately, got tired of making money for people. That I didn't get what I felt was like my fair share of it back.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm God's gift to earth by any means, but I've done really, really well for companies overall and have done very, very good in
Yeah.
terms of helping them get a better return on all of their marketing and e-commerce that they're doing. So I get the idea that I need to do this on my own, start my own agency. That was about coming up on year two, or
Ooh.
finishing up year two here,
Oh.
October 22, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, October 22nd, 2022, I think was when we started. So yeah. Um, so yeah, it's been a trip. First year was good. Second year was also another kind of big roadblock. We lost our first year. We were agency of record. Things were going well.
Yeah.
And then went separate ways with the client at that time.
Yeah.
And I go into another depression, don't know what the hell I'm doing. And, so now we're in this resurgence, this rescale, this, hey, let's realign, let's find our values, as a company. And I guess thematically, as I think about it, all of that heartbreak could have been solved, but maybe I needed to go through that heartbreak in order to realize, like, no, like there is kind of like this foundational thing that you have to set before you engage with world. And
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur and going through all this stuff, I definitely learned a lot about myself, but I think I've definitely learned a lot more about myself in this past 2 years of being a business owner. And I know everybody says it, super cliche, right?
Well,
Most cliche thing that you could possibly say.
I think it would have been tough going from learning about mass sale calls at college and then just trying to jump off on your own. I think you learned a lot on the way.
Sometimes you wonder though, like, I guess if there's anything that I look back on and do think about of like, man, could have that gone better? You asked that question earlier, was should I have just jumped in and just failed earlier?
Yeah.
Right. And nothing I can do about that now. Focus on the now, but I do think some of those headaches and heartbreaks and blah 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 that I went through to get
Yeah.
to this point would have happened a lot sooner. And that's where you kind of have to, lean on whatever it is that you believe on, saying that you're in the right place at the right time for the moment that you need to be in. And, try not to control or try not to freak out about things that you can't control.
Yeah. So what do you do on the either the daily or the weekly now that you feel like keep you either at a consistent or on a good trajectory?
Probably have some undiagnosed ADHD, so it's pretty chaotic from any day to the next. But I really did recently part of that scaling, part of that understanding myself, part of understanding my business was looking at it and saying, okay, this is how I am, right?
Yeah.
Like there are some things I could probably change, I could do better. I know that I tend to operate better if I work out or do breathing or meditate or whatever. But I also, there's this element to me that despite everything that I've tried, like doesn't get better. So
Mhm.
how do I work with it? And one of those things is just like my sporadic mind. I can get on tangents, I can talk about it because there is just all these cool things that pop into my brain at any time. And then, I'll be working on a website and then I'll be like, oh man, that button isn't, uh, working with the website. It's
Yeah.
not scaling with the website. Now I got to fix that button. Oh, but that reminds me about the button on this other website. And then pretty soon I'm like down this rabbit hole and watching YouTube on like, Roman empires and whatnot. And I'm like, how the hell did I end up here? So with that, I really did. AI is a huge buzzword, but I really do think it is useful, and specifically the ways that I use it for myself, right? Everybody's got their own needs and stuff,
Yeah.
but I use AI as like a friend to
Yeah.
bounce ideas off of, to like talk to, etc. I don't use it to write an email for me. So I will sit there and I will bounce ideas off of it. And one of those things was spent like a full Saturday being like, my schedule is messed up for how I learn, how I work, how I research, how I, etc. Here's everything I got to do. Here's the things I'm missing out on.
Yeah.
And I think there's apps right now that help you do that, but I wanted a more like systematic, like I'm going to bounce these ideas off and it has to work for me. I now
Right.
have a schedule that allows me to like get all the stuff in
Yeah.
day to day. Because before, you know, one thing I hate is monotony. So I can't be like, okay, every day at 8 a.m., I'm
Yep.
going to do smiles and dials. So now I have a system where it kind of rotates like throughout the day, like, okay, smiles and dials at 8 on this day. Well, now
Yeah.
it's at 10 on this day. And I'm going to do something else at 8 tomorrow. And I've got this amount of time to do catch up work or, block out for meetings. Maybe I've got a networking event that night. Maybe I got to go to a conference, something, it just kind of allows for more chaos, controlled chaos, I
Yeah.
guess. And that was playing defense in football. Like things are crazy
Right.
around you. The world is crazy. And I'm going to be crazy at times. But I, and as long as I can kind of keep it in this box,
Yeah.
and as long as I can, like, I'm still like checking off the things that I need to do to feel good about my need gap. Because that's in reality what depression is. Like when
Yeah.
you think about it, is I'm here and this is where I want to be. I'm not reaching it. Don't I trust me, I have the chemical understanding of it as well, right?
Mhm.
But when you really search those feelings, it's a need gap. It's a need gap of like, I feel bad.
Yeah.
I want to feel good, but I can't feel good. And there's this space in between that
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out what it is. And so I try to align myself with that a lot of like realizing like, why does this feel bad? A lot of Socratic method, like asking myself why, like why does this
Yep.
feel bad? Why why do I even want to be over here to
Right.
begin with? Is that the right measurement? Is that the right goal?
Mhm.
And then, rinse, wash, repeat daily almost. I think that was the thing that was actually liberating, but very tough to learn was that, oh, yeah, no, it's not just a 1 week class on bullying.
Right.
You have to, you have to tackle this stuff consistently. You have to realize like, hey, these are the tools I'm given. These are, this is the life I was given. This is the things. I didn't do well about my emotions back then. I didn't keep them in check. So now as a business owner, I know I need to
Mhm,
because I know more about myself. And if I want to be over here, here are the things that I have to do to get over there.
mhm. Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely have a part two soon, but to wrap things up, we'll end with the same two questions.
Yeah.
What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
Health to me is listening to all kind of three layers of you as a person. And health to me is tackling your spiritual side and kind of your conscious level, this ambiguous kind of energy that you are,
Mhm,
whatever makes you you that is not tangible, right? Taking care of that, taking care of your mind, which is processing your soul and your body and everything. And then also taking care of the body that is going to do the actions that your mind is going to do on behalf of your soul. So, hopefully that answers the question, but I do
yeah.
think that you have to look at it at three levels because at any one point, if one of those things is off, then your whole system is off
Right.
from
No,
health standpoint.
absolutely. And then what's something from your life that you think people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
Stay true to you. Stay true to what you feel. You know, uh, Not to get into politics or anything, but I typically take a libertarian approach to most things in life. Is like as long as what you're doing isn't hurting anybody or causing harm to yourself or anybody around you. I mean, to be honest, if you want to harm yourself, by all means, that's your choice. But just realize that as long as you do stick to those values, as long as you do the things that make you feel like you're going towards the direction that you want to be, what you want to do in this world, you're going to be all right.
Mhm.
And realize that any of that other BS around it, the people around you, a lot of times those people just kind of fall by the wayside. So, in the end of the day, we've got, if you're lucky, 70 years, 80 years on this planet, and then all of a sudden you become a name, you get forgotten at one point. So, really, really try to do the best that you can for yourself here on this planet and try to find a way to give back too, you know? That's kind of the stage that I'm in right now is trying to figure out, gone through all this, feel like I'm coming up on the other side of it. Therefore, what can I do to help other people as
Mhm.
well?
There it is. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Absolutely.